Good morning. I'd like to call to order the November 8th, 2022 meeting of the Tree Protection Board of Somerville. I have two announcements to make first. Kenny Sott, the immediate past chair of this committee, passed away tragically and unexpectedly a few weeks ago. Kenny was chair of this committee for a number of years. He did an excellent job. He was also with the tree committee for just about 10 years, which is a very long time. All of that put to shame by the fact that he was a volunteer fireman for the town of Somerville for almost 30 years. That makes him a true public servant, and he will truly be missed. He always did a good job in the meetings of trying to weigh the constraints of the ordinance, as well as the rights of the people, small owners, small property owners, with being able to do what they wish with their property. It's a difficult line to walk, as I hope you all can appreciate. And he did a very good job of it. He could conduct the meeting very well and could find compromise more easily than a lot of people could. We miss him very much, and he will be sorely missed in the town of Somerville. My second announcement is that our town arborist, Bill Salisbury, will be retiring at the end of this month. For a number of years as our arborist, and then prior to that, a many number of years with Parks and Recreation Department of the town. We've enjoyed Bill. We've enjoyed his wisdom, his knowledge of the town, and at times his humor. So we'll miss you, Bill. Thank you very much for all you've done.
It's been enjoyable working for the town and serving my community, and I love Somerville a whole lot. So it's been a whole life born here in the Somerville Hospital, which is the government building down there up in front of McDonald's now.
Right.
So,
Very good.
I'll still be around.
I know, I got your number, unless you change it. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Bill will be replaced by Nick Wilson, who also has a history with Parks and Recreation, has studied arduously to become an arborist, and I think he's going to do a great job. So please welcome Nick Wilson to our staff and organization. Thank you. First order of business is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any discussion, corrections that wish to be made?
I move to approve as submitted.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. First order of business is old business, 312 King Charles Circle. Morning. So we've had discussions before about this, and I understand the and we'll discuss this considerably. But I want to recognize first that we do respect the willingness to advance solar in this current time. It's the most relevant and appropriate mode of action. Yes, sir. It gets complicated when there's lots of trees around the house. I wonder if we could scroll up and start looking at, well, first look at I have one remark to make. If back up, let's look at the diagram here. It shows Okay, that's the front of the house, 36-inch red oak, which you know is our greatest concern. However, on the side of the house, it shows a magnolia, which is right under, sort of tucked under a large yellow poplar. And in front of that, on the street side, is a large sweet gum. If we could move to the shade drawings, please.
You're gonna be way down here.
Yes, you got through all the trees, but we've seen the trees.
I didn't know a way to do this. Bill's not that smart.
Yeah, you. Okay. There's the house, the large circle in the front of the house. At the bottom of the screen is the large red oak. To the right of it is a cluster of 2 yellow poplars, not large trees. Then at the back corner of the property is what I presume to be, if these are to be individual trees, the cluster of 2 yellow poplars, since they're almost fused together to the right of the big red oak, that's understandable. I would assume that is the pine tree. The large pine tree, the one that's at the corner of the house. It shows it actually shading the house literally with the green shading on the roof itself. But it only shows 1 tree to the right of them. And there are 2.
Correct. They were unable to do individual shade reports due to them being so close together. So they did clusters. That's what I was told.
Oh, okay. I scratched my head on that one for a while. Okay, and then again, we'll discuss this clearly, but I think the general feeling was we're a little bit confused about the data points. If you could scroll up, down just a little bit more. That's good. Back. I just want to look at the columns on the headings on the right-hand side there, right there. So the yearly solar production for that photo or that shade diagram is X number of kilowatt hours with an estimated offset of 19%. What does that 19% mean?
So from what I was told, the offset is how much it's offsetting your electric bill usage. So each tree removal is contributing to a greater offset of your electric bill. She also advised that these calculations are based off of the whole year and overlap somewhat because of this and other factors. You can't just add them all up together, which is why they had to do the clusters.
Okay. But so we're to assume then that in this diagram, the second diagram, go down a little bit more, Bill. Yeah, let's go to one of the larger ones. That removes only those little cluster of poplars in the front. Correct? And that's insignificant.
Total offset, well estimated, is roughly 67%.
Of all of them.
That's estimated.
You wanna go down to that one?
No, go back up to the next, I'm sorry, back up to the one you just passed. I added up the percentages and they don't add up to 100. That's what troubled me.
Which is why we can't. She said we can't add them up, simply
Okay.
because of it's the entire year.
No, the next one down. The one the big red oak is gone. Right there. So that has the largest impact.
Correct.
And
Covers the entire front line. Of the
Right.
roof.
and that gave you an estimated offset of 30%. And there's one other scenario where the large tree in the back of corner of the house gives you 27%. And those are the only points I wanted to make. I wanted to see what the numbers meant, and I'd like to ask and see if there was any discussion, any questions.
Well, only, yeah. As you can tell, I'm stammering a little bit. This has been, is an incredibly complicated issue. I mean, for you as well as for the board to try to make a fair determination. As Peter said, we absolutely applaud you for going the extra mile and spending the money to install solar panels. It's great for the environment. It's great for your energy savings. And it's a good thing to do for the community. At the same time, it's also the trees on your property are also incredibly important to you for energy savings. You know, I wish that we had been able to find if the energy savings that red oak tree is providing, because it's right there, and as you know, it's shading the front of your house. So the trees are providing the shade. They're also sequestering the carbon in their biomass. They're also taking up water and habitat for wildlife and all that. But in addition to that, in your neighborhood, which is a beautiful neighborhood, I drove through it a couple of times, and it's trees are ever present, and they're sort of a hallmark of the neighborhood. And to remove so many trees, I think would, in my mind, would be a negative thing for the neighborhood as a whole, and truthfully might diminish from your property value, especially that problematic red oak, because it's right there. It's an icon of the house.
So that being said, we are talking about planting some more trees. We're not just trying to get rid of all the trees on our property. Regardless if you guys, decide to go against or for, we're still going to plant some more trees in just areas that we would like,
Right.
that would benefit us.
Well, that's good to know. And I guess I said all that what I said as a preface to ask this question. Given the importance of both the solar panels and the potential importance of the trees on your property, does your consultant think, or do you all feel that we could reach some sort of compromise by saving some and allowing you to put in the panels, and the board approving to remove some? Is that something that you and your
Said, we actually agreed to not remove the tree in the back closest to the house. We're not going to put solar panels in the back of the house. And besides the one tree in the back corner of the house, which is diseased, you guys approved.
Mhm.
Well, we didn't approve it.
Well,
but
you guys-
it is questionable, yes. The big pine tree.
No, he's talking about the live oak.
Oh, the big live oak way back. Oh, yeah, yeah, we approved that. Sure.
Besides that one and the one next to it, which is, it's half a tree, it's cut off, it's dead. We can leave everything else on property. So the number went from, I believe, 17 trees to approximately 6 or 7.
Right, well, we were only to consider 1 through 8 today. Which we're doing, and then
Was it 8 considering for the one closest to the house in the back?
that's the one.
Yeah, that's
closest.
number 8 on this
Number
list.
8.
Okay, so yeah, that one's.
In fact, we can take that off the list. We're actually looking at 1 through 7. Yeah.
And it had minimal impact. Well, of course, according to the shade diagram, it had minimal impact because there were no panels back there.
Correct. We decided to go against the panels back there.
Okay.
Between that tree and my neighbor's tree, it was just not going to make sense to put panels back there.
Did you discuss with your consultant if you were to install panels on the back, if we were to allow the removal of that tree and install panels on the back, is that something worth you all considering?
No, because of my neighbor's tree. It's still over the house,
Okay.
so we would not be able to.
What about the red oak, doing any kind of trimming on that tree? Would that help alleviate some of the issues as far as shade? Could you do enough trimming there to still keep the tree looking nice and healthy, but also allow shade?
I would have to
the
talk
sun.
to them about that. We were out there, I believe it was last week. And the tree just towers over the property.
Mhm.
Like it covers the entire front of the house.
Okay,
So it'd have to be a lot of trimming.
okay.
In order to make that work.
And
I
that's-
guess the other question I have, just the report that you have here, I know that tree does tower over the house. But during the winter time, of course, it's not going to have any leaves on it. Does it take all that into account that?
Yes, sir. It's the full year report. Right.
Okay,
So as it stands right now, we don't have, the solar panels aren't going to cover 100% of our electric use. She was able to determine approximately like 60%, 67%. And they lowball the number.
So back, back to Danny's question. Would you or the contractor be willing to accept a compromise on the removal of not all, but some of trees 1 through 7?
Yes. We can come into some type of agreement.
Which opens up, all kind of options, it's
Unfortunately, the biggest concern is the big tree in the front. That's the one that's affecting us the most in terms of wanting to get solar panels. What trees are you?
well, I mean, there's any possible number of compromise. You could leave the red oak and take everybody else. You could keep the red oak and remove the pine tree and the gum. And there's just a number of options. I'd like to open that up for some more discussion. As options that you see.
Yeah, could we see please the drawing that shows this, the shade on the side of the house? Yeah, could we see the drawing that shows the shade on the side of the house?
Yes.
The compromising irony here is, of course, the largest tree that you're concerned with is the most iconic tree on your property, short of the live oak, which is wonderful, but it doesn't have a great future, and the one, a big one in the back. So that's the crux of the issues here, the iconic red oak and its effect upon your wish for solar energy. Go ahead, Ben.
So the renderings are a little hard to interpret, given that they're doing clusters and shades. So do we know what the pine tree that's in the back corner of the house, how much, what the removal of that would be, what percentage you'd get from that?
Let me pull this up. So unfortunately, they were unable to do just the individual trees, like I stated earlier.
Right. Well,
Even
The
that
side-
cluster.
whatever group that's in.
The side tree, it's a 27% offset.
Okay, so the removal of that gets you almost to the same amount as the front tree.
Is also considering the cluster in the front. It's not just the one tree.
Right. I guess what I'm driving at, thinking about, and I don't know how the rest of the board will feel about this, but thinking about your neighborhood, thinking about the statement of the and the character of the neighborhood, which is part of what is worth preserving, is in the event, just in the event, and this will cause the board great pain, but in the event that we were to approve the removal of the red oak, and you were able to retain as many, the red oak and the pine tree in the back corner. And if you were able to retain as many of those other trees as possible, and I mean a significant amount, the two yellow poplars, and the gum tree specifically, then that kind of hangs on to, in a sense, to the feeling of your neighborhood. And I'm wondering if that gives you enough solar savings to consider that.
So that the front cluster and then that one tree on
Yeah.
the side.
That's what he's saying.
So how many trees in the front are we? What numbers?
That's 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3, and
7.
then 7.
Yeah, we can do that. I can get in contact with the company and see.
I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, and again, it causes me, it hurts my heart to talk about taking out that gorgeous red oak, because it's just stunning. But in an effort to get you and your family what you hope to achieve with the solar panels, and to to protect the environment that the trees are offering and protect the livability and the character of the neighborhood, I'd be willing to think about that. Now, is that something that you would want to just talk to your consultant about before and then sadly come back? Or is that a decision you'd be willing to make?
Decision now. If that's something you guys are on board with.
Bill, let me ask you a question. Is there any kind of mitigation requirement for the trees if they come down? I'm not sure how the town acts on that.
Yeah,
It would, if they're 16 inches or greater, it would be 100% mitigation. If they're less than 60%, but the board and staff do have discretion to lower the number of inches if it's not feasible for that many trees to be back on the lot. So
Right.
we would just need to figure out the math for that.
That's a good thought.
it certainly wouldn't, you have so many trees, it would, we could mitigate to the degree that removing just that red oak would require. Because it's gauged in terms of the replacement trees being 2.5 to 3 inch diameter canopy trees. There will be room in the back, although difficult because you'll have the giant red oak, live oak stump to remove, and then the tree next to it. There's a little bit of space. There's not a lot of space in that yard.
No, there's not, but they could do some lower canopy trees. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not a landscape architect, nor a designer. But it seems to me that if you remove 1, 2, and 3, especially that large red oak, then that leaves the front of the house a little vacant and it sort of becomes a little more wooded on the side so that a 1 or 2 attractive smaller canopy trees on the left might be beneficial.
Definitely. That would be something like a Japanese red maple or, an ornamental.
Actually, one of those trees I was looking at. the Japanese,
Are we permitted to substitute the need for canopy with lower canopy trees? Understory trees? There's no way to put a canopy tree back in where the red oak goes out.
Well, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
You know,
just
I mean,
put
it
to
would
the
be
same-
25 years, but it still defeats the purpose.
Where were y'all trying to locate these trees? You said you wanted to plant some new trees.
We're just doing some research now online, trying to see
Okay.
what trees and driving around the neighborhood, see what other neighbors have done.
I couldn't recall. Was there some opportunity to plant some trees on the back of the property? Okay.
It's pretty heavily treed.
Yeah, I don't know that you need any in the back.
Trees, I mean, they help with just sound alone,
Yeah.
ever since, all the trees were cut down for the road. We've been hearing the range a lot more. So we do want some trees to at least try to block all that out.
So you're hearing it even from the clearing. Amazing.
Sounds pretty bad back there.
Understory trees are not,
It's not. Okay.
Got to be canopy.
not with the tree.
And what's the height? What height does the ordinance consider a canopy?
Yeah.
Do they? Yeah.
I mean, we do change that if, we plant something underneath power lines and stuff, but that's the only place, I know that we substitute upper story trees for understory.
Right, but what I was getting at is continuing with the compromise thing, thinking about something that I would consider a medium-sized canopy tree like Chinese pistache or something like that, and that something that would max out at 30 feet, 35 feet. Okay. Okay.
Generally, the suggested list that we have. So,
A whole list of items.
There isn't a reason that you couldn't do it anyhow. I mean, and we couldn't. We are limited in what to be reasonable, what is stipulated to be mitigated, because you only have so much room on your land. This also puts us sort of in one of those painful binds, because you have to remember that one of the things we are to do is not just look out for individual trees, but look at the canopy of the town. The performance of the trees, their purpose as oxygen bowlers, CO2 trappers, erosion control, all these kind of things. So the overall impact of removing trees is beyond just one tree and then replacing it with others. With your particular lot, again, we're sort of in a bind, but that's a separate issue. We really haven't even finished dealing with the first issue, and
So
mitigation could be perhaps negotiated at a later time. I don't know how that works or not. Often, Bill, you used to go around afterwards and describe the need, and you know, when we decided to have a mitigation on a lot, we didn't specify the trees here.
Well, it's depends on what will fit in the yard. So we have to go see what can grow healthfully in the yard
Right.
versus, we don't want to overcrowd a yard. And this yard is pretty well overcrowded
Certainly
to
not,
start
because
with.
that would,
So,
no,
I mean, he'd have to plant, just if you mitigated for the red oak, you would be looking at, 12 trees.
Yeah.
3-inch caliper, which that yard can't handle.
No.
I mean, if you cut all these trees out the front, you couldn't plant more than 3 or 4 more trees back in there, so. So mitigation is gonna be way down on what,
right,
and we don't have a vehicle for him to mitigate. Put money in the tree bank. Commercial people can and developers can, but they took that away from us for individuals.
yes. What were you gonna say, Dan?
well, can we? Would we comply with the ordinance if we say that if the board says that we want the applicant to mitigate 1 2.5-inch tree to be selected from, or 2 even, to be selected from the list that the town has. And then that part, they select something that, and that they could prune, that accepts pruning readily. So that in 25 years, it might not be much of an interference. I mean, is that
Yeah.
comply?
We could do something like that. 25 years, the solar panels not only be a quarter and the,
Right.
If you look at things that changed in the last 25 years, you can put it on the tree. So,
Right.
you know,
Well, yeah, that makes sense. So. I mean, I can support that. It's not what I want, but I can
Yeah.
support that.
Well, I think we've got to compromise in this situation, and I think that's a good compromise.
Any more discussion?
Would you like a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see if I can
This
see
is
if
a
I can
mo-
formulate that.
Motion.
Okay, so I move that we approve the removal of trees 1, 2, 3, and 7. With the stipulation that the applicant select a tree from the city's list, or 2 trees from the city's list to be planted in their front yard.
Second.
Could I amend that?
Certainly.
So I'm amending the motion that in addition to that, where space does become created by the removal of trees in the backyard, that a canopy tree be planted there.
That'd be something that can be planted with the removal of the, was it the live oak in the corner?
Once the live, well, yeah, you, and
Yeah.
that would be immediate, but once, I mean, you got some cleanup to do there before it happens. We really like, that's a corner that's gonna be a little naked now. Although the neighbor gets a lot of that foliage, but there will be a naked corner. That would be a good place in the corner for a canopy tree. So I would like to add that. So, first, we need to vote on the amendment that I just did. All those in favor of the amendment to that?
Aye.
Motion? Opposed? Now we vote on the motion itself. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you to you and your wife for your patience.
The next order of business, I'm waiting for the screen to come up. Okay. 101 Dan Myler Lane. Is there anybody here representing that?
Good morning.
Yeah, so first I apologize because our plans changed after we submitted our application. We've had trees that we've needed to deal with for a long time, and we decided to move our driveway, and that's what finally got us to, let's try to get some of these trees taken care of. And after trying to start that plan, we realized it was not a good place to put a driveway, so we removed that. So that's gonna be a completely separate issue. So we marked a lot of trees, but in reality, there's really 6 that we're really concerned with that in our eyes are clearly diseased or leaning to, that they present danger. So everything else is marked are ones that are either kind of close to the fence and they don't look unhealthy, but they're leaning one direction or another. And so we really just wanted to get some feedback about if any of these would be suitable to remove and then plant other native trees in our lot. 'Cause we have a lot of open green space, but just on this one side of the house along the fence,
Along the street.
yeah, there's 27 trees just on that side. And they're so dense that the ones near the fence kind of have to grow out over the power lines. The ones on the other side grow out over the house. But so we're really just looking for feedback on what makes sense there. Now we did leave 2 sweet gums that are mature. And the reason for that, again, we're looking for feedback. One of them is next to an oak tree. It's like the only live oak on the lot. They're really close together and the oak is growing over. So we wondered if it would be beneficial to take that tree down. If not, we have no reason to do that.
So are there still 15 trees on request or no?
So we had taken 3 of them off.
Okay, well, we didn't entertain evaluating all the trees when we were there because we heard that we had that information that your plans had changed, but not able to know what the plans were. We really couldn't go to every tree and evaluate them. So we were perfectly willing to come back and evaluate the trees. And I saw trees and we all saw trees in there that did need to come down. And we're happy to go back and do that. We did not take the time to administer every tree that was flagged because again, it sounded like something was different and it didn't seem productive to look at trees that may not even be considered for cutting. So we'd have to make another appointment for next month for the tree committee to come out and look at the trees and have the ones flagged that fit in the category of really need to go.
Yeah, you certainly had some trees that we felt probably needed to be removed. And I know there's some competition for canopy space, so
Right.
we just need to kind of get an idea which trees you have in mind.
Okay. Yeah, some of them will remark with green, the ones that we decided that, well, these no longer need to go because we're not going to try to put a drive through there. So basically you're saying that there's really no discussion today?
No, we really need to go by and look again. I can't. No, we have, because we have to make notes on every tree, and discuss, in general, the whole scenario. So I would really think it would be best for all interested, we come back.
Yeah, I would
There's not
agree.
an urgency, we'll go back if it's okay.
So,
So I thought you had a green slide, maybe with this, I think I got. Thing on, that one, this one here, and maybe this one. The one in the far left. This one. This one. The one in the far left. Right, so the one on the far right, that's the one that's next to the other street. And again, if that's not been good to the other street, then.
Okay.
This way, we have plenty of sweet gums. Yeah, I don't think we need more time.
Okay.
It would be good if you could meet us the day, and the day will be announced, of course, and if you could meet us, if there's still multiple flags here for some that really need to go, where they're obvious, and others that you maybe think you want us to know, tell you if you think that would really help the oak tree to remove this competition. It'd be good for you to be there if you could. Okay,
So if you're not even seeing the application, we'll just wait for it.
We'll just move it over to the next meeting. Won't be any more fee or anything. It'll just be on the next meeting,
all right.
the December meeting. December the 12th.
And what, so if
First
the
Wednesday.
meeting is December 12th, we will be coming.
Oh,
what
12.
day?
We'll be coming to your house on the
The
Wednesday before. That's when we need to look at it with you with the trees.
7th of
7th, okay.
December. They'll
Day
be
of
coming by
instrument.
to look at it. Well, we can move it to January.
We have to, or I can have a neighbor.
Well, if we got more information on what you were doing, we can maybe do that with staff level, and maybe I can meet you out there, or Remy or Nick could at another time, and we could discuss what was gonna be going on with it. I'll be here till December the 2nd, and then Nick's taking over after that, so we'll be turning it over to him now.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks a lot.
The next item is, I should have a sheet up here. .408 North Palmetto Street. Is there someone here who wishes to
Yeah.
speak?
I think so.
Good morning.
Good
Good morning.
I'm here to have that pine tree removed from behind the house. Basically, every time the wind comes up and rain and high wind, you have a toppling of limbs and then coming down on the roof. And it also has a bent in it, and I'm thinking that it might fall anytime, and if it does, it's gonna fall on the house.
Well, we certainly visited the tree. We saw the tree, and any suggestions or discussion from?
I mean, we went out there and looked at it. Was there any structural issues up top?
I didn't see any.
No, there were some branches that needed pruning. And this is what happens with older pine trees. The branches that blew off onto your house were probably dead, didn't have needles on them, right?
Sometimes it's the green one comes down to,
Well, the tree looked very healthy to me. Although they could use some pruning of some of the limbs.
oh, last year. probably August of last year or May.
Well, they may have gotten some lower branches, but there was a couple of problematic branches more toward the top as well. More difficult work, but it's considerably less expensive than the cost of removing that tree. Danny, what you?
I don't see any need to remove that tree. It looks healthy. It could use a little pruning from time to time for sure, but it looks stable. I didn't see anything that made me think that structurally that it might fall on the house or that the tree might fall. And I didn't see any limbs. The limbs seem to have good attachments. And I didn't see any limbs that I thought might fall if the tree is pruned every 3-4 years. So I can't find a good reason to remove it.
Danny, it was one limb already broke off just hanging up there. That last storm broke.
Yeah, we-
I don't see it in the pictures, but
Right.
we did have one limb, that was just hanging up there.
There's maintenance involved with big trees. Right, it's like people, and we would surely love to see it maintained rather than removed.
Did you have a certified arborist come out and do the trimming for you on this tree?
I had someone to come in and, what is it,
Within a bucket truck?
turn the tree up.
Right.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times, if you can get a professional to come out there and just have them trim the tree, they can look at the tree also and just kind of reassure you that there's no issues with the tree. Give you a little peace of mind, but yeah, I think if they did that, they would find the same findings we're seeing, that the tree looks to be healthy. Shouldn't be a problem.
It's healthy, but I'm not.
Discussion? No. Well, I'll make the motion that we leave the tree to remain and suggest that you get a professional the next time it needs to be pruned who can qualify in a qualified way, look in the tree and see if there is something more that we can't see from the ground that would warrant wanting to bring it down. And then you most certainly could come back and request the removal.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. (108) Royal Troon Court.
Good
Morning.
Morning.
Did you want me to start and?
Well,
or-
we have our visit and we just, when you were there and we were able to discuss it and have 3 letters from different tree companies, 2 arborists and 1 not arborist, and I have to admit that the letters are sort of confusing and they sort of jump around. But we understand your desires. What discussion?
Right, so I certainly, the tree that had the top blown out, certainly I can see that could be removed without any problems. In looking at, I didn't see anything in the other trees when I was there to make me think that they should be removed. And I read pretty carefully all 3 of the arborist reports. And though they point out, they say, well, if this tree falls, it's going to cause problems or it's going to cause damage, but they don't point to anything specific, with the exception of 1. They don't point to anything specific that says this is an issue, there's decay here, it's structurally unsound, and it is a risk. They don't say that. The only arborist who says that is one who talks about a corkscrew nature and a lack of taper. And that arborist feels that that tree might be unsound. The rest of them just, they point to, it's got a codominant leader and that means it's going to fall. That's simply not true. I mean, it's just, you can have a codominant leader and maybe be weak, but unless a skilled arborist is up there and looks at the crotch to say that, yes, there is decay and it is a problem, then you can't just assume that because it has a codominant leader, it's dangerous. And the same way with the arborist who said that he or she saw perhaps evidence of a lightning strike, and it may have decay. And if it has decay, then it might be a problem. I've seen lightning strikes hit trees and it doesn't decay, it seals it well and protects it. And the same way with the tree that has the limbs on one side. Certainly I saw that. And the fact that it has limbs on one side does not make it structurally unsound. And you know, the evidence of that is when the power company comes through and they just side trim a pine tree and only has limbs on one side, those trees stay for years and years. So with all that said, I can see removing the tree with the broken top. But I don't see any need or any evidence that either of the other two should be removed. And then the tree that's close to the shed, that's a good, strong, healthy tree, as evidenced by your arborist reports. They all say that. And the fact that it might drop a limb on the roof of the shed is not reason to remove it. I mean, good maintenance of the tree could prevent that from happening. And I didn't see any evidence. We pulled back the pine straw. We did not see any evidence of tree roots in affecting the foundation of that shed. And if they should start to go that way, I think they could be root pruned without putting the tree at any great risk. So I say removing the one with a broken top, and I can't justify removing any of the others.
So I think I want to make sure I'm following along with you because you're referencing the one with the broken top, but you didn't mention the one that fell on my house during the hurricane. So which one are you referring to? as having the top blown out?
Okay,
Number 1 or number 3? I just want to make.
Well,
sure.
which one fell on the house? The top that came out?
Number 1.
That had the
The
top.
one that snapped and fell on my
Okay.
house.
And number two, in my
Is-
recollection is, and it's leaning
That's correct.
toward the backyard.
That's correct.
This is also the one that I believe, and I want to double check this. I'm going to say this right now. I want to have this looked at again. That had the corkscrew and lack of taper. Well, if that's the tree that has those symptoms, then that really, we ought to look at that. I did not see that. We did not see that. The arborist who stated knows that that's wouldn't have pulled that out of the sky. So I think we need to look at that again. That one, the third tree number 3 is the one that had all the branches knocked off.
It had the
From-
top blown out. That's it.
No, tree number 3 it still has a top. It was shaved. All the branches were shaved off the front.
Half of the, you would probably better describe it than I would, but it has half the top blown out on the third tree. The one in the middle has the branches only on one side.
Right.
And that tree number 2 is also the one that had some evidence of some insect damage on the base of it as well. And so right now, whenever Bill did his initial report, tree number 1 and tree number 3 were the 2 that I were told that were approved. And so the additional request is for number 2 and number 4. And as I mentioned last week, tree number 1 that fell onto my house was a tree that was denied by town or tree committee back in 2019. And then tree number 4, which is next to my shed, which is 4.5 feet away from my shed, was approved. And I made the decision not to have any of them removed because I didn't feel that it was necessary to only have 2 removed if I couldn't get all 4 removed. And here I am going through the proper channels and asking for this request again because of the fact that a tree has fallen on my house versus just going and doing it. You know, there are a lot of people in this town that do that. And so I'm trying to make sure that I'm following the proper channels And based on what just happened with tree number 1 being in good condition and then falling on my home during a hurricane, tree number 4 really needs to come out. I can't control what God does. It's an act of God, but at the end of the day, I have to make sure that I'm safe in my own home. And I've got other property owners around me who could possibly be at risk. I mean, again, number 1 was a fine and healthy tree. And it was a fine and healthy tree in 2019, whenever it was denied. So what's to say that, next time we have a hurricane, that tree number 4 doesn't have the same thing happen to it? So that's why I've spent the time, I've had 2 certified arborists and a forester come out and evaluate these trees because I am taking this serious. I don't want to have another tree fall on my house or on my shed or cause me harm or my neighbors. So I just urge you guys to help understand where I'm coming from on this.
Did natural directions and natural directions really only, it appears as I read his letter, it appears that he only did a real inspection of the one that he says had a corkscrew fashion trunk and just makes note of the other 2, or did he do a thorough inspection of all 3 of those trees?
He did do a thorough inspection of all the trees on site. But he only wrote the letter about tree number 2 because again, he knew that number 1 and number 3 had been approved. And based on his evaluation, his thought was number 4 is a good tree. It's A. He graded it as an A, which Newkirk did as well. And that's why he chose not to put it in his letter, was because it was graded A, as to where Newkirk does call it out and says that it is a safety hazard
Right.
because of the proximity.
Right. So were trees approved for removal before coming to this
I
board?
came out there and told her I could give her permission at staff level to remove 1 or 3, since 3 had been damaged, so. But if the other 2 that I didn't see anything wrong with, that they would have, and if we go to tree committee does all 4 trees. All trees go to tree committee once we come out of the tree committee. So she chose to come to tree committee instead of
Okay,
taking
yeah.
taking my offer.
I just want to make sure I wasn't,
Yeah.
overstepping here.
And you could have approved which?
I would have approved tree 1 and tree 3.
Right.
Because I feel like tree 3 will we'll get pine beetles in it now that it's damaged. It's just in my general. Since it's damaged, it's stressed, and pine forest has a lot of pine beetles in it. And anytime a tree is stressed at all in there, it gets pine beetles in it.
And so when you can approve at staff level 2 trees, but the owner wishes to do all 4, then all 4 trees have to be discussed at
That's
tree
correct.
committee.
That's
I'm
correct.
just trying to make
Yeah,
sure I understand the rules.
Understand that part of it.
Okay, I needed to obviously as well.
And, I think I kind of agree with Bill's assessment, of 1 and 3. 3, it's a chance he could survive and make it, but it does have a lot of open wounds and it might invite insects, pine beetles, just whatever. But 2 and 4, I just think they're in good enough shape, just from the reports we have here. I think they should remain for now. If you see some issues, down the road, certainly bring it back up.
Well, I think, number 4 aside, number 2, I think my biggest concern is right now, it does have growth on one side. And as soon as 1 and 3 are removed, it's not going to have that wind barrier and it's going to make it weak as well. And plus you're going to have the root system down at the bottom. It's going to become weak once I remove 1 and 3. Those are my biggest concerns right now, is not having that barrier protecting tree number 2 right now, once it's removed.
Well, that's a relevant point. Any thoughts about that? Okay.
Well, I'm not so sure I agree about the inevitability of infestation by pine bark beetles. I mean, that's just, there's it can happen, but it cannot happen.
Right.
So it's not inevitable.
Is it something that maybe we should go ahead and just have them clean it up and see how the tree reacts to?
Well, that or if the applicant is willing, I'm perfectly willing to do what Peter suggested and go have a second look and, you know, make sure that we are looking at everything that we're not missing anything. So I'm willing to do that to
Is that
have a
acceptable?
second look.
Yeah, when would you like to come out?
It'd be on the 7th, December. right?
Well, what's the normal procedure in a case like this?
Unless y'all want to make a special appointment, you could do that. If y'all want, if y'all will agree to that, you can.
I don't mind.
Can you all go out?
We can arrange a special arrangement. Visit.
I think it's important enough to do that because there's doubt here. And we don't want to do the wrong thing and we surely want to do the right thing. And sometimes they get confused with each other. As far as tree number 4, I can in all good conscience allow for the removal of that. It is, we rarely get too many A trees these days. And it is a substantial tree. It's unfortunate that the shed was put where it was. I'm assuming you didn't put the shed there. You know, I mean, it's, there's other room for a shed next to this tree. But as old and as large as it is, there's absolutely no evidence of any cracking. A lot of times pine roots don't rise to the surface and crack foundations. If they have really good ground, they stay out of the way. And it may be, you know, in its entire lifetime, it will never threaten that slab. We don't know. Currently, there's no evidence whatsoever. It's healthy. I think its danger was overstated in the 2 reports when it was described. That would apply to any tree anywhere that, you know, if it's 20 feet from the house, it's a danger to the house if it falls. Well, why is it going to fall? I mean, we see this a lot and it's troubling, but that's a healthy tree. And I think you can feel it. We're just not interested in approving that for removal. Trees, as they get that big and get older, require maintenance, pruning, if dead branches become a threat to falling on the garage, in the shed. But as far as blowing over and hitting in the house or any of the neighbor's house, it's gonna take quite something and it would be chaos in this whole world if that were to happen. It would be a Hurricane Hugo, which we cannot predict and we cannot hedge our bets and remove trees based on the potential of another Hugo coming. There would be no trees left. So I hate to keep going on about that. So I'll make the motion that we approve tree number 1 and that we have a revisit of tree number 2 and 3 to evaluate their need for removal.
Second that.
Motion passes. Any other more discussion?
Wait a minute before you vote. I think you need to address it as all 4. I think if you do it the way you can, once you decline a tree, you're supposed to wait a year before it can come back to y'all.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we just wait, till we revisit?
Okay.
All of them, right?
Yeah, and look at all of them. We'll just, you know.
You'll
we'll
re-vote
refresh-
again on December the 12th.
Right.
Decide then after you gather your.
I didn't know that rule either.
All right, but one of you will email me about scheduling an appointment to
Yeah.
come back.
We'll all get together and
Okay.
try to schedule an appointment with you.
All right. That'll work.
I'll get a couple days from them when they would be available. And then I'll check with you so you can pick which day you would like. That work?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm. 207 Niblick Road.
Hi there.
Hi.
You guys.
Morning.
Good to see you again.
Good morning.
This is Sandy, this is my neighbor.
Hey.
So where you guys came out and had a look, Nathaniel's here from Southern Roots.
I see.
For the damage he saw when we climbed all the way up to the top
Mm-hmm.
from a lightning strike. There's been further, like more and more needles coming down. So.
How recent was that strike, do you think? Have you any idea how recent?
I'm not.
Was it recent or you just don't know and all of a sudden?
I don't. So many storms, I'm not sure when it struck. There was that, what was that?
That would have been Ian.
I think maybe 2 months ago.
That
there
was
a
Ian,
strike.
Hurricane Ian. And well, maybe there was
It
no.
might have been. I don't know when it was struck.
Okay.
But there was one time where we thought something had struck the front yard. We
Right.
couldn't find any damage and it knocked your cable out there, the next door neighbor's internet out. And an entire line of like none of our lights worked on one side of the house. So we think that must have been the one, because that was a significant, right? We had no hot water for a week. That was exciting.
Oh.
My husband had to get creative to try to figure that out, but we didn't realize that it actually struck the tree. So,
Okay.
Okay, so this is what spawned your request to come and speak
yeah,
with
we
us,
wanted to
yeah.
make sure that there was actually an issue, because we had been noticing that the pine especially was kind of looking more discolored. It didn't have sort of we call it like regular discoloring, like the end of season
Yes,
needle there. It seemed to be more all over the place. And so Nathaniel had taken out a disease oak for us when we first moved in, and he's an arborist, so we asked him to come and shimmy up the tree and
yeah, he did more than shimmy.
shimmy.
This Nathaniel continues to work really hard at staying young, and I'm impressed. Because he had to get up in that tree, because we saw the photos, unfortunately late. We would much would have preferred to have seen them earlier, but we did see them on your phone, and saw things that we could not see. And so, which is the beauty of going up in a tree. It was hidden really well. Yeah, it was. Saw a little something with binoculars, but Danny, did you have any?
Yeah,
discussion?
yeah, I'm curious. Nathaniel, thanks for coming by. Thanks for coming, by the way. What did you observe when you were up in the tree? What's the reason for removal?
So I actually told Kathleen that I would be surprised if I found anything going up the street. That's how well it did. I know, you should have. All the way up, my first clue was there was an enormous buildup of sap that was running in a vertical line about midway up the trunk. So as I saw that and saw two other spots of buildup, I started looking more carefully and went up into, I was probably 10 feet from the top. And that was where that one picture of the crotch that was blown up. And it had this really light scar. And so I peeled back the bark and it was just hollow underneath the bark. So the cambium is starting to completely deteriorate. But that spot, the two other spots that I found as I was coming down the tree. And that's really what it was. And, you know, we noticed the first time I looked at it, there was hardly any browning needles on it. The second time,
3 weeks apart.
3 week difference from when I first looked at it to when I did the canopy inspection. The browning needles, I was surprised at how many more needles had lost their color completely. The tree's definitely under some stress. And I believe that just from the amount of foliage from the sweet gum surrounding the trunk right there, that was actually the last spot that I saw any trunk damage. I think everything got spread out through the two trees, and that's why we didn't see any damage. I don't know if you guys ever got any pictures from the sweet gum, but I did
No.
have.
I didn't
think
see.
they came through our phone later.
Yeah.
Later
I
that
found
day.
a few later. My phone likes to take about an hour and a half to send pictures. Definitely a little bit older, but yeah, I think it came in through there. There was two other bad spots in the sweet gum that I found that have nothing to do with the lightning. They're in a really odd place on the inside of the two main branch structures of the sweet gum. So I took a picture of those as well.
And what were those? You said bad places. What did you see in the sweet gum?
It looked as if something was pruned off, but nothing was ever there. There weren't branches there. So it's circular dead spots. And whether the trees started to compartmentalize and seal around them, each of them was about that big around with maybe an inch of compartmentalization around the outside of them. They're going to develop cavities. up to you guys whether you want to prove it now or wait till later and see how it develops, but.
So it looked like, I'm curious, it looked like, a limb had been removed and it was callousing over and,
except
but
for-
no limb had been there.
Right,
Huh.
so you can tell from the grain of the trunk, there's no circle where a branching would have been.
And did
So-
did you detect any, I'm sorry, Claudia, did you detect any decay at all in there? Or-
Well, so the wood under, where the wood is, that wood is dead. It is trying to it has started the compartmentalization process. As we know, or as I know, trees have a very difficult time sealing the fourth cellular wall. The first three off of a branch structure, off of a proper branch structure is easy enough. With the branch structure, when it's moved off, it has that where the fourth wall is, there's a predetermined place where it's easy for it to spill off. Yeah. So in the trunk section, though, there's no predetermined place by alignment, say that the tree is grown, you keep that rock from traveling further.
Right.
And that's why it always shreds. That's what probably happened down as well.
Okay, but Nathan, you think it's worth waiting and see if this tree does okay?
If it was my tree, I would take it out. That's what I would do if I could. That's what I would recommend, just because it's tweak them, there are multiple bad spots in it. I think we should delay the inevitable.
I'm looking at the photographs here, and in those places where the wound is and the wound wood is formed around the outside, were you able to determine how deep any decay might have been inside the wound wood?
It's still solid on the outside.
Okay, that's what it looked like. That's,
It's very, it looks like it. I mean, I don't know. It could have, but usually lightning doesn't affect it in that. Or no, in that specific of a localized spot, lightning likes to travel. And it will disappear and reappear at different spots, but it's always traveling on the outside. This looks like something. Looks like something literally cut the bark off of the tree.
Wasn't us, I constantly the other tree.
Yeah, no.
It's very strange looking. Do you have any?
yeah,
Any more thoughts about the pine tree? Any more?
just one last question about the pine tree. What would you estimate is the length of trunk that is structurally unsound from the top down?
From top down, it's all, so the first spot starts at. How much did I say that tree was about? 85, somewhere around there. So after the first spot starts around 50 feet, and then you have a 10-foot gap between the next spot and then another 10 feet between where you get to the next.
So there's 10 feet in between sections of decay or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And so, and that either tells you that the bark hasn't, you know, the canopy hasn't completely died in those spots that were affected, and therefore it hasn't been visible yet. I've seen it so many times, pine trees will hide their damage from a lightning strike. It'll travel that cambium, and if the bark stays on and stays somewhat solid, and the decay is on the inside, all of a sudden, you know, 1 year that bark will fall off and then you'll see the extent of the damage.
Right.
So this is-
And then how far down does it go? You know, if you started from the top and you name those, you know, you get the one and there's 10 feet and then there's another one. At one, I guess, let me flip the description around. From the bottom up, if you're standing on the ground from the bottom up, where do you first find a decay cylinder?
Somewhere between 45 and 50 feet.
Okay. And the
is
tree's
needle-
50 feet tall.
Tree's almost 90.
90.
Okay, I thought you said 50. All right. Okay. All right.
Did y'all see,
Needle casting throughout, not just, is the needle casting and browning throughout the canopy, not just, you know, at the top?
do y'all see this grouping where, look at your photo there where I'm moving the X around?
Yeah.
Where this gum trees had damage before. all these sprouts that came out of that damage.
Either that or it was over pruned a while ago.
Hmm.
I actually think it was probably over.
Overpruned?
Yeah.
Okay. I just was seeing this stress.
We hardly, all that.
You just,
Mm-hmm.
we only moved in a year ago.
Mhm.
We would have had it through this, then, before a while, you know.
Probably.
Do you think that could be a weak section of the trunk right there where all that growth is, or not necessarily?
No, I think the weaker spots are above that. That's just the response from, being opened up from overclearing to the environment that it was covered in before. So I see a lot of shoot growth produced like that from overclearing. Just trying to, number one, redevelop the limbs relief structure that was taken off, and number two, to protect the trunk from getting to sunlight.
Trying to survive.
Uh,
You mentioned something about maybe planting trees in the yard or,
Yes, we already have, one olive, a grapefruit planted. I have 2 loquat trees. I had collected 3 of the live oak seedlings, kindly planted by the squirrels from our previous live oak, but I was taking your recommendations of rather looking at a red oak or no, not sorry, it was a water oak, a red oak or a live oak. And so we're looking to do that in the front between our 2 properties where there's that big cement area. We want to put like a nice big tree there
right,
to shade the front yard. And then on the side of our house where, so on the corner, that side, I want to do all native prairie and do like pawpaw and native magnolia and red, no, you said red bud, it's not American plum, I think. And then we're also looking at adding about 3 peach trees at the front and another olive and possibly another oak by where the mail was. So we want to add a lot more trees.
mhm,
The biggest concern with Andy is the third bedroom is right on that corner.
I have noticed that in my bedroom for 20 years.
So
Because
that's,
the limbs fall off in the storm, the limbs come off of those trees and land on, and it's amplified whenever it hits the roof. And so when I'm inside, it feels, sounds like an entire limb came off the tree. And they're probably not that big. One of them did damage our air conditioning. But I don't like, it scares me, I don't, so I just don't sleep in it.
we're looking to put in probably between 10 and 15 trees around both our properties. And this one also is right on the fence line. So you saw my husband's just built that gate. And he's got the division to build the fence, but we can't build the fence because luckily we get on. Trees are literally right on top of both fences.
okay.
In addition to back there.
Any more discussion?
Well, only that I certainly see just cause to remove the pine tree. I'd rather wait and see how, how this gum tree responds after the pine tree is gone for approving its removal, because other than, as Nathan said, some over pruning and the sprout growth, I can't see anything, and I wasn't in the tree, but I don't see anything that causes me concern, but on the gum, but certainly the pine tree could be removed, in my opinion.
With the gum tree spruce, as you can see in that picture, it goes right across that area and they're all heading towards the house, which I know they go down unless there's a crack in the foundation. I don't really want to wait to see if there's a crack in my foundation. You mentioned root pruning. Is that something we could do if you won't let us take the gum out? Because my husband just jumps out of the top of his van when he has to get into the yard.
Yeah, certainly. We recommend that all the time. And if
that's something
if
that-
speaking with Nathaniel would certainly know what would be feasible to root prune and not, whether it's too much, too severe.
Yeah, is it
Plenty.
too close to the tree where they're talking about root pruning to?
I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I would, unfortunately, we're just gonna down the tree more.
So it'll just hasten the issues. It's very tough.
Where is,
No,
the-
it'll cause more issues. Yeah, it'll introduce new product.
Well, respectfully, I'm gonna disagree. I've done a good bit of root pruning in my days and done properly by a good trained arborist. You can do it with little, with little issue.
Disagree all
Yeah.
the time with that.
Yeah.
Is it possible to consider if you did get the gum removed to replace with a different native tree? Because if we wanted to plant another tree in that area, we can't because the gum would overshade it. And we really like rather have something that's either more of a shade tree than just a straight up.
Sure.
That, I mean, during Ian, which apparently according to all the natives here was barely considered a hurricane. It was fairly terrifying for me to hear it creak and almost like, I'm taking video, almost coming all the way down. And if Nathaniel, as you mentioned, there is some issues already. I mean, I'd rather plant something and let it grow healthy, like a red oak or a magnolia. I'll look at the list that Bill has.
Yeah, elm trees. Again, is this a inch for inch mitigation if she were to do something like that?
this would be for the sweet gum. Yes. That means,
It shouldn't be an inch by inch mitigation, because the sweet gum does already.
but there are issues that could prolong it for a long time. It's hard to kill the sweet gum and you know that. And it's,
Kill a sweet gum, but it's easy for sweet gum to fail if it has damage.
if that crotch is that crotch really concern you a lot?
Saw the pictures. Those spots aren't gonna, or it's not gonna compartmentalize and seal up quick enough for that decay to spread, or for that decay not to spread further. It will always have a weak spot there. And root pruning's okay if it's a small enough root, but once you get over 2 inches on a root.
I wish I had seen the picture to show the roots. I don't remember. How close is it to the house?
What's that?
I still think it
Trees.
is.
I mean, I told Kathy that I think the tree's far enough away from the house where it's not gonna. it's not gonna
It
break
just
down.
creates the roots just are getting, to get in and out of a driveway.
Surface roots.
creates, an issue.
Mhm.
So-
Can you bring the picture up of the sweet gum again, please, Bill? The crown of it?
This one?
Yeah, Nathaniel, that, at the beginning of the V crotch of the codominant stems, and I'm seeing discoloration starting in the crotch and going down. Is that for sure included bark or, I mean, I can't tell from the photo.
Yes, yeah, there is included bark there. That is definitely one of the reasons why it's a little discolored. The first wound was just above that first go down. Second wound, looking at it, this photo is up that right-hand side. It should be within the picture, almost to. Yeah, right around there.
Okay, but how about moving down the trunk from the crotch downwards? I see discoloration. And I can't tell if it's wound with its folding in or what from the picture.
Yeah, whenever, that one is, it's a tight enough codominant union where there is included bark there, for sure. It's just gonna, as the tree is bigger, that union will become more unstable.
Yeah, the question I'm asking is that, I see a length that looks to be about 4 feet long of a dark spot running down. And my question is that evident included wood in there? Or do you sense decay, or is that just a discoloration, a darker spot? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
The included bark probably doesn't travel down that far,
Okay.
but what you're seeing with the discoloration is gonna be the weeping from the branching. So
Okay.
It'll weep out and stay in the
Yeah.
bark.
Well, that was pretty much my question. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
So Sweet mitigation for the sweet gum would be inch for inch, correct?
If it's over 16 inches in diameter, then it's 100% mitigation. The ordinance does say that if the tree is dead, diseased, or dying, mitigation can be made.
Well, it's not dying.
So,
But it does pose a risk of failure.
it does. And many trees do as well. The one that was supposedly disapproved, it broke in half and hit the woman's house. Things happen, right? If I would be inclined to permit sweet gum removal with 50% mitigation or less. And maybe just one nice big 2.5 inch red oak in the front yard. Because as Danny said, the tree isn't dying. I mean, we're all dying, right? We're senescing.
Thanks for the
The
reminder.
growth curve is flattening.
Whose yard do you wish for this tree to be planted in?
What's that?
What?
Whose yard do you wish the tree to get planted in?
Well, I'd like to have more than one planted, actually.
Well, we've already, like I mentioned, we're planning to put an oak, which is for something that sits on your side in the front. An oak or magnolia or one of the canopy trees by our available on the outside. And then hopefully one sort of shears, yeah, there's on both. And you can have one there back there, yeah.
I know you mentioned something about seedlings, live oak seedlings, wiggle. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay, and the size we're talking about, I think it's a minimum 2.5 inch. Is that what it is for replacement mitigation or
It's,
Yeah.
if you're doing mitigation, usually we go with 3-inch trees.
3 inch trees? I mean, that would be even better. I know we're talking about, additional costs there, but I think you would be happier with a 3 inch tree versus.
That's already sturdy. I
Mhm.
mean, I would rather than wait for the gum to fail, I'd rather give something else a chance to grow
Sure.
there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, I know the city sometimes does, seedling, they go by, is that?
I think they still
like
do
this
that.
helps one.
Yeah.
Just like,
They're gonna do,
they're doing that again.
they're gonna have 3-inch panel.
This is diameter.
Yeah.
And so that's not inexpensive. And you probably should,
I sell baked goods at markets.
Here, if it's a red oak or live oak. You guys have to do your right?
No.
no, not,
all that have to
not
be is
terribly,
canopy
no,
tree.
you can do the swamp chestnut oak that you threatened to plant at another location, I remember, Babe. How was that tree doing, by the way? Good.
About 3 feet on it.
Good. So anyhow, no, it's not sacred. It's a canopy tree. I mean, you could put a southern magnolia there. We consider that a canopy tree. We'd rather you don't, and you probably wouldn't want to either as a centerpiece like that, because then you have to rake the front yard all the time and for about 5 months. Yes.
No,
Okay, so. No, any of the, and the site may not be the friendliest one for a red oak. It might be better for a willow oak, who knows? But no, just an oak.
Let's get this thing going.
Okay.
We talked, beat this bush to death.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the removal of both the pine and the sweet gum, provided appropriate mitigation of 2.5 to 3 inch caliper trees are planted on either one or both of the properties.
Second.
No more discussion, I'm sure. The motion passes. I mean, the motion is seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank
too,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Good luck with your project.
201 Central Avenue. Okay. Is there anybody here to represent 201 Central?
I mean, I don't know if it was there. I thought he was there. but-
Chris is with Paradise Schools.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm not there, I thought he was gonna take care of that, was he with another client. But, I'm not sure, okay. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know if you want me to represent him up here today or not. I'm a little bit confused with that.
What go ahead.
It's our understanding that the pool is probably not going to go there. And,
Okay.
Justin had said, if he emailed that it's damaging, and I think in the application that it was possibly damaging the foundation. So I guess I don't think
Okay.
they can discuss if they want, but if they're
Okay.
not, we're not 100% of the pool, then we are.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience for waiting so long and listening.
Sorry for the confusion.
That's all right.
I don't think he, Justin had said that, had a professional come out and look at it, but we never received a letter from anyone
About the foundation,
for the tree itself.
right? Okay. So we assume he's going to come back and simply defer?
That's up to y'all. I mean, you have the option of discussing it, and voting on it.
What discussion do you have about the street?
There's no way in the world would I approve the removal of that live oak.
Yeah,
It's not
a nice
happening.
tree. Nothing wrong with it at all.
If it was challenging the foundation or evidence of it, that's a whole nother thing. And if that claim is to be made, then we need to see, a professional evaluation of, and because it's not a continuous footer house that has the old pedestals. And so they look absolutely intact when we looked at it. And that would be the only challenge that tree could, propose to the house. And anyhow, so
So y'all can vote on it.
Yeah.
And if they have any other information they gather after this, they can bring it back to y'all.
I'm deny whether we move, I'd make a motion that we deny removal of the pine, of the oak tree. And if there. And if there's additional information about challenging the foundation in the future, then we'll be happy to entertain it.
Second.
Motion is seconded. Any more discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor of the motion?
Uh,
All opposed? The motion passes. This is the one who's not here, is that right?
Unpaid fee too, so.
And then there's Winfield Forest, that's also
Unpaid.
unpaid.
We have one other one in between those right here, which is a spool over here. This is wrong here because it's not wood.
Yeah, that was repeated, that page is repeated, correct?
here we go.
This is where we are. And this is an old, this is from where you came before. I just put the same package back in here. These are the only two trees that are left. These trees over here, this tree over here is already removed. Let's see if we got something. Here's where the pool was gonna go, and here's the two trees where the pool was gonna go. I brought this because it had all the pictures.
Did we see the diagram of the site plan? Please, Bill.
I'm trying to get it back up.
Y'all are still proposing to put the pool here as shown.
I know there is a concurrent discussion about impervious surfaces along with our consideration of the trees. Is there anything new on that?
Yes, I mean, I've actually got a new site plan made. We're gonna actually take that concrete patio out. And right now, the pavers are, let's say they're not in great shape, everything's a little unlevel and so forth around the trees and so forth in that area. So the plan is to pull those out, pull all the pavers up, take that concrete patio out. And so I guess when the pavers were put in, they weren't considered impervious surface, but they are now. That's over a few months ago. But we're gonna take all those back up and just kind of redo that whole area, take the concrete out, and it'll actually give us more space there with the paver than to have concrete. I have a mess right there right now. You saw the picture before, so a lot of improvements to be had in that small area.
All right, so then that need will be satisfied with that proposal. Okay.
Will the brick in the front come up as well?
No, but some of it along the side. Along the side will.
Yeah.
And then in the back will be shortened up.
I've got one ready for you. I didn't know that the impervious surface part was going to be part of this. That's true. But I do already have it made calculated because when we take that, which is roughly 120 feet of that concrete patio, I had a very small area around that before. But we didn't count the pavers, we just pull those. So what we did is by taking that out, we gained, 120 to 180 square feet we could put back as long as it's pervious. So we're doing that area, that pool, and then he's gonna make the walkway that went from front to back, and we're gonna make it a little smaller, so it's steady to 35%.
That's really not much in y'all's decision is how much impervious surface.
Right, that's what we were.
Yeah, yeah.
The question came up, we're trying to answer it.
They just knew that was a question that we had about the whole project, so.
I've got those numbers for you.
No, no.
Different if it were clearly impossible for you to meet the impervious, but that's not the case with this lot. If you come up with a solution, then.
Correct. The first thing about White's Mouth was, when we started the pool, so the patio staying. But now the patio's gone. But she bought off on that.
If you're removing the patio, with those changes, is there any way to move that pool so the trees don't have to be removed?
Pretty shady about it. There's some large trees out the back, right? Is a large elm that takes up that whole back side. And what he's proposing, I mean, I know we're a little bit easy to come up with the calculations of what the foot per acre. I think we're still over when we take pines out. But he's perfectly willing to put some back and some others in there. We could do that.
There will be more trees at the end.
You don't have a lot of room. Where would you put some
Well-
canopy trees?
Right now, along the back fence line, we have, 7, paper along the back, and there's gonna be something along the fence between lot 15 and my lot. That's gonna be some kind of water absorbing material. I don't know what we're gonna put down there yet. As soon as we get things going, we're gonna work with Palmetto Landscaping as far as landscaping.
Right.
He's gonna put some cover there, it sounds like, but, you know, if he needs to put some back, right now, I'm not sure if that's required.
It will be required.
Okay.
Yes, so the lot is 0.21 acres. So that would require
34. And I don't know how high these are, pretty close, that roughly, you know,
34 inches.
or
We would need to know how many caliber inches exist on the lot, and the difference between that is what.
well, I want Rory there or over, but I'm ready for regardless. What we have is all better. What we're calculating. Need 34, we have 44. With the trees in the front yard, side yard, and back yard.
Are they canopy trees?
Yes, sir. 2 maples, a elm,
That big one in the right-hand side as you're looking at the back, right?
elm tree, 2 maples, and a little birch, then 2. Well, I don't know, the 2. Big hurdles in the front yard, one at the corner of the house and one by the corner of the driveway.
Y'all would just need to provide on that site plan, mark where those trees are and call out their dimensions, showing that you're meeting that caliber.
But I'm not opposed to adding more trees, like I said, there'll be more trees coming. But,
In the back or in the front? I mean, you're gonna run out of room.
The backyard,
Is there anything in the front? I forget.
well, that's in the front, yes, that's, we got, I have pictures here of what's in the front yard, and that's 2 great myrtles, maple tree, and, river birch in the front yard. On the side yard is a maple tree, and the backyard is the, Chinese elm tree.
Peter, all we have to do in here is
Yeah, what you,
make sure they have the right. We can put on the permit how many caliber inches are required for the yard, and then they have to provide that before the. At the end of construction.
I'll verify it before I issue the permit.
Yeah.
well, I need to include that in a motion. However, is it not also true that we can require mitigation over and beyond that requirement having been met?
Not when it's for construction.
Not for construction, okay. For,
If it were. just
Non-construction.
completely removed, then it would be 100% mitigation.
Okay. okay, all right. Have you given any consideration to moving that, as I look at it in this diagram now, moving it to the left to save one of those trees?
No, the reason being is right at the fence line on lot 15 is another pine tree that hangs over my property. And as an example, on Thursday or Friday, when the wind came up and the rain came up and dumped all the pine needles off my trees and his trees right there where the pools. And,
So it wouldn't matter whether you moved it to the left or not.
by removing those 2 trees, the pine needles, with the majority of them be in the blank space there, and a majority of the leaves from the Chinese elm will be over on this side. Yes, you're gonna get some pine needles, you don't get
Yes.
them all over the place. I'm gonna get some leaves, I'm not gonna get all of them.
Peter, I think if you were trying to move it over, let's say just take one of these trees out and move the pool over, you're gonna be getting in the root zone of the tree in the neighbor's yard. If you follow me.
Without a picture, I don't remember the neighbors. Which neighbor?
His root-
To the
lot
left.
15, his roots come all the way up, his roots are already pushed up.
Okay,
See the tree behind the fireplace?
right.
His roots already come up into my bricks already.
Well, moving it to the left and sacrificing tree number 2, but trying at some way to preserve tree number 3. I should have been more clear. No,
That just can't happen. That's just putting a tree right at the edge of the pool and dumping all finding the right into it.
any discussion? Danny?
No, none for me.
I don't know. I'm perplexed. I can't. I appreciate the applicant wanting to install the pool, but the fact that you want to cut down trees because pine needles might fall in the pool troubles me a little.
No. But you have to understand that pine needles in the pool, given 2 grand trees, does leave room for discomfort on the members of the tree protection board. So that's what you're hearing. I totally agree with that feeling. But we should not be preventing people from doing on their property what they can do if it is substantially compensated for, which it cannot be, because these, in our lifetimes, any trees that are planted will not provide what these trees are providing for the environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the things you've heard today on earlier discussions. So
What mitigation would occur? If
Well,
we were to permit?
may not be any mitigation in this case because their caliper inches may be satisfied even after the removal. But the caliper inches are based on
The size of the lot.
the size of the lot, and
He's telling you he's gonna plant more trees no matter what you require.
say what? I know I heard that, yeah.
He's telling he's gonna plant more trees no matter what you require.
We're gonna do something, we're landscape backyard, it's not gonna be a bare backyard. In other words, we think we have a, plan that I can give back before to show that he's got enough trees, but if not, we can get to that tree list, come up with a plan that'll. Keep them over on that side, because you already got some. Trees, something to work with there.
Just one last question for me. Just tree number 1.
It's gone.
Okay,
That went.
that's already,
My original permit was to take all 3 down. And I had approval of that one because it was, it had a hole in it.
A big decay in it.
Down, that hole went all the way up and down. I mean, that was
We remember that tree.
it was rotten, right? And then I said, I said about putting a pool in, and I said, well, we discussed 2 and 3 when the
Pool permit comes in.
pool permit came in. Or that's what we're trying to get.
I don't see how you can get the pool in there without doing some damage to roots or whatever. If you were to leave one behind,
Right.
you could take the tree over there in your neighbor's yard, maybe limb up some of those branches that come over to your yard to lessen the amount of needles that would fall into the pool, but
And the patio goes and the fireplace goes and the bricks that are underneath the, where that little picnic table is, those will be gone and that will all get moved back because of the pool will be up that far.
Closer to the house.
Yes.
I move that we allow removal of tree number 2 and 3 contingent upon the satisfaction of the caliper inch requirement for that property being met.
second.
No more discussion? All those in favor of the motion and say aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Big healthy pine tree in the, back left hand corner that on property line between the two houses. But they haven't paid, there you go, that helps.
Yeah.
They never paid. This lady over here on this side, where left side of the street, she's applied for a permit too. She had paid it, right? She was one of the paid. And that's there's, when they hadn't paid, they came, vote on it, one way or the other, they come back next month. They don't ever stay, they don't ever take the decision one way or the other. So if I don't stay, well, we'll deny it. Yes, whether we should have.
I mean, they wouldn't automatically get on the next agenda, they would have to pay. No, not tonight.
Which one is that?
This one.
This one here, we can't approve it at staff level, but we could deny it at staff level.
I would just withdraw it and put it as dormant if they don't respond after contact.
Okay, but I mean, if they don't come to the next meeting, then it could get denied and be,
Yeah, I think the ordinance says that there has to be a decision made like within 30 days on the permit, but I think if they haven't paid, then they haven't completed the application, so it's.
My spidey senses are saying that the tree committee would probably not approve the removal of that tree either, so.
Is that the way it works?
So,
Huh?
I'm not the one who has to make.
No, this is a difficult day. Frankly. I have a question though, for you, Becca. Is it possible that we could get, since this is gonna come up, the caliper inch requirement issue, if some of that is known beforehand, is it normally, do you all go through that?
So this time around, what I did is I emailed all of the applicants and let them know what the mitigation requirement would be. And I did say that, staff and the board have the ability to waive some of these requirements depending on certain situations. And to contact me if they had any questions about that. I did have this property owner reached out to me, and I explained that there were, and a few other of the property owners reached out to me, and then ones where there's construction involved, if it's residential, I'm already involved in that permit if they've applied for it. So Chris and I have been going back and forth about the impervious surface, and I told him that, I couldn't do anything until the tree part of that permit was decided. But like if it had been a case where I didn't think there was any way possible they could meet the impervious surface, I would have let y'all know that.
Yeah, right.
What Jesse and I had talked about doing is putting the mitigation requirements in the staff report in the packet. I didn't have time to do that before today. So that's what we're planning on doing is having that on the staff report in your packet. So when you guys review the packet, you can say, okay, this is what's going to be required if we approve the tree. And then I'll put the references for the mitigation chart in the ordinance, so you know where to find it, if you want to look at it more closely.
So
And then
you-
eventually Remy will take over doing that. And Nick will have that information too, so I won't really need to be here.
No, that's fine, but is the information in the packet to make this job so much easier, because when we got to put the brakes on, and say, well, wait a minute. When it's an issue now, if it's construction, you're already gonna know about the,
If they've submitted, yes.
and you will have asked them to submit the tree survey with these, circumference totals?
Yes, so when, and we obviously, like, same with people just not showing up, we might not be able to get that information, but it will be communicated to them that we need that information in order to make an informed decision. So if you don't, it should be part of the application requirements.
Yeah,
You know, I was kind of appalled when Pam told me that you guys didn't get a site survey or sketch with all of the permits, and that wasn't something they were requiring the applicants to do. Which is hard because then you can't,
right.
you know, implement the mitigation requirements. So we're looking at adding, you know, the mitigation stuff, and then
My main priority this week is learning and memorizing that mitigation information and the ordinance information, because I would like to be able to present this stuff to the people in the yard, so I
Right.
can say,
Perfect.
if this is approved, you'll have to plant this, but I don't have that stuff memorized yet, but that is my goal, because it is embarrassing for me to have to turn. You know, I feel like I should learn that, so I'm gonna try and learn it quickly this week. I might even make flashcards, seriously.
Seriously, okay?
it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we do have the certain cases where, you know, like that solar panel one. It's kind of something that I hadn't seen before, so.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I think that's gonna continue to come up with the solar panels, and I just wish we had something better. I feel like we're kind of shooting in the dark sometime, trying to guess whether or not trees are causing an issue or not, or how much of an issue.
Them from a planning perspective, that I do not believe that constituted removal for construction. Because in my mind, construction means installing it. And they have the permit to install it, they can install it. Whether it's going to function to a certain ability is not something that it's in our ordinance or, you know, changes the
Right.
requirement. Obviously, y'all take that into consideration because it's why they're requesting the trees
Mhm.
be taken out. But from a planning perspective, I would apply the 100% mitigation or that rather than the ratio for construction, because that was my interpretation of it. And I told them that.
And was there did they object to that?
They didn't respond to me, so. Again, it's kind of hard to gauge, if they actually absorb that.
Right.
information.
Right, yep.
In their mind, I mean, coming from their perspective, they want to remove the tree for a good reason. So that might, sometimes it just doesn't mean anything. Don't care what the requirement is. So.
Well, like Danny was representing earlier, the value of those trees to the neighborhood.
Yeah,
You
it's important.
know, and they're not getting it, so it would be one thing if they could get 100% of their power bill relieved from the trees, but only 60%, is that what I remember him saying?
60.
Yeah, so it's not gonna be real efficient, and is it worth removing those trees and destroying the streetscape of that neighborhood? Is Bill's thoughts on it.
I had a question too, because there was something on that one that was kind of skipped over, or not skipped over, but it was something that I think I wasn't here for, but I wrote down that we approved. I think it was 1, 2, 3,
7.
7, but then there was also a live oak has that already been approved? The live
Yes,
oak?
we approved.
Yeah,
the
it was
live
way in the
oak
backyard.
Okay, okay.
There were
I just
two
wanted to make
trees
sure.
that really needed to go. Unfortunately, the live oak probably live another 100 years, even with all the rot on both sides of it. But it was way into the neighbor's yard, and if it ever did sever at that base, that rotted base, it'd make a mess. So, and then he abandoned requests for the other trees. There was a ton, every tree in the backyard.
That water oak right next to the patio in the back needed to come on out.
Huh?
That water oak next to the patio in the back, I felt like needed to come on out. It had rot in it already. And a water oak was rotten, it's leaning towards the neighbor's house.
I think we talked about that one.
Did
for
we
them to
get,
a
we
arborist
approved that, didn't
report.
we?
No.
Is that number 8?
Yes, yes.
That's the one with the root strangling.
Yeah, but eight leans towards their house.
Yeah, that's not the same one.
Now, I think it's another one. But anyway, they're happy and
Maybe it won't work that well and they'll won't be happy. I don't know. All right, I guess, I have one more last little business. I'm quite sure there isn't any more discussion derived by anybody. Have a motion?
I would move to adjourn.
A second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed.
How's Faye doing?
Be there. Okay.